Surprise! Mom's coming with us. My husband said cheerfully, his voice echoing through the entrance hall. While he and my mother-in-law seemed excited, I couldn't hide my surprise. After all, my husband was talking about our honeymoon. I was baffled by what he was saying, and he frowned in dissatisfaction at my reaction. What's wrong? Aren't you happy? Of course, I wasn't happy. He should have known that, especially since my relationship with his mother was the worst, and I had complained about it many times. She couldn't forgive me for stealing her precious son and would pile up on the sarcasm whenever she saw me. The trouble was, she never showed this side of herself in front of my husband. She played the part of being a good mother-in-law perfectly. As a result, even though I kept telling my husband on how she treated me, he didn't fully believe me. But I had made it clear I didn't get along with his mother. Yet, he planned something like this. What was he thinking? Wait a minute, we're leaving today? There's no way we can book flights and hotels at this point. Naturally, I hadn't booked anything for my mother-in-law. It was absurd to think we could add her to our trip during the peak travel season without a reservation. My husband snorted as if it was obvious when I explained this. Then give me your tickets. I'll go with Mom. I was speechless at his audacity. What on earth was he thinking? This wasn't just any trip, it was our honeymoon. What kind of husband goes on his honeymoon with his mother? I'd hate to travel with her under any circumstances. Seeing me speechless, my mother-in-law looked triumphant, clearly proud that her son had chosen her over me. Come on, hurry up. I paid for the trip, so it shouldn't matter. He thought he could do whatever he wanted because he paid for it. That made me pause to think. Speaking of which, about the cost of this trip. My name is Vanessa. I'm 28 years old and work for my father's company. Despite accusations of nepotism when I joined, my earnest work and results eventually led to recognition and appreciation, though some still spoke behind my back due to my status as the boss's daughter, occasionally hurting me with their thoughtless words. Ryan, my husband, was my support through it all. We were the same age and became close after being assigned to the same team, often confiding in each other. It didn't take long for us to start dating. Ryan, who performed well at work and contributed significantly to our achievements, was well regarded by my father, who wholeheartedly approved of our marriage. So, you're Ryan. I've heard a lot about you. Please take good care of my daughter. Yes, I'll make your daughter happy. I remember looking on at their conversation fondly. At the time, my father was considering passing on the company and, amidst speculation, Ryan was even touted as a potential successor. The marriage seemed like a timely solution for my father, who was contemplating a generational shift in the company's leadership. Although I've never been one to seek the spotlight, the idea of a capable son-in-law taking over the business was more than welcome. I believe that was probably what everyone was thinking. My father never directly discussed it with us, but when we dined together, he often spoke about the mindset for managing a business. So, Ryan and I both thought that eventually, it would come to pass. Ryan's father had passed away, and his mother lived alone in their family home. Ryan cherished his mother greatly. Even while we were dating, if his mother called for help, he would rush to her side. He raised him on her own and wanted to repay her. He would say this with a sense of guilt, so I would send him off with a smile. I thought how wonderful it was to be with someone who valued his mother so much. I even felt proud to be in a relationship with him. However, after we got married and started living together, I began to notice something odd. I'm going to visit Mom for a bit. This phrase had become like a catchphrase for him. And he would visit his mother every week. Is your mom not feeling well? When I asked, worried, it seemed that was not the case. Vanessa, you don't need to worry. It's important to have some time to yourself, right? At first, he would say this and hug me, but he stopped doing even that recently. On a Saturday morning, as he was cheerfully preparing to leave, I asked him, "Hey, are you going to visit your mom today?" My question, which until then had been in good spirits, made him stop what he was doing and sigh heavily. "Ah, what's with that tone?" I flinched at his words, but it was too late that I realized I must have sounded accusing. Ryan turned around and glared at me. "Can't be helped, right? Mom's alone at home. I'm going to keep an eye on her because you said you didn't want to, right?" I was taken aback by his reaction. Yes, I had difficulty getting along with his mother. It wasn't always like this, though. His mother, who gave birth to the man I love. I wanted to cherish her just as much as Ryan did. That was my initial thought. But such feelings aren't always reciprocated. She saw me as a thief who stole her son. Ever since we met, she would wait for Ryan to be away before throwing sarcastic remarks my way. It happened for the first time when we went to greet her. As soon as Ryan left the room to go to the bathroom, her demeanor changed completely. From being all smiles, she looked me up and down as if appraising me. A president's daughter or whatever you are, you're not that pretty." Before I could recover from the shock, she continued with loaded sarcasm. "It's surprising you had the nerve to show your face after stealing Ryan from me. I don't approve of you at all. Don't think we are all good." She sneered at me and loudly sipped her coffee, making a show of ignoring me. Naturally, she hadn't offered me any coffee. Mother? Don't call me that. It's disgusting. Why did I have to face such hostility from someone I just met? Despite my efforts to reach out, she would just ignore me. As I stood there confused, I could hear Ryan returning from the bathroom. Suddenly, her attitude shifted back, and she offered me coffee as if she had just remembered. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't offer you coffee." How careless of me. Ryan returned to a light-hearted laugh from his mother. "What, Mom, you hadn't served coffee yet? She's such a lovely lady, Ryan." "I forgot to serve coffee." She smiled sweetly, as if nothing had happened. "I'd be happy if you call me Mother without any hesitation." I felt a chill down my spine. Ever since then, my mother-in-law has continued to make sarcastic remarks to me whenever Ryan wasn't around. It's like she's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Ryan probably has no idea of the side his mother shows only towards me. When I couldn't bear it and confided in him, he insisted that his mother couldn't possibly say such things. "If it bothers you that much, you don't have to see her." My words didn't seem to convince him at all, and he looked disappointed. At first, I tried hard to make my case. But no matter what I said, with Ryan always taking his mother's side, I eventually gave up trying to clear up the misunderstanding. So, I took Ryan's offer to avoid meeting her. Unless necessary, I wouldn't show my face at his parents' house. From his perspective, it must seem like I dislike his important mother. "Just make sure you lock the doors." Saying that, he leaves for his mother's house today without looking back. I stretch out to stop him, but it doesn't matter. Ryan's back blurs through my tears. On days we argue about his mother, Ryan doesn't come home. It feels like a reminder that he values his mother more than his wife. If it weren't for issues with his mother, Ryan is a great husband. He quickly notices when I'm having trouble at work and supports me. Although he often works late, leaving most of the household chores to me, he helps out whenever he can. Maybe it's somewhat better since he said I didn't have to meet her, I mutter to myself while looking at travel brochures. I shake my head, deciding to focus on the task at hand, planning our much-anticipated honeymoon. This honeymoon will be a break from thinking about his mother, at least. There won't be any calls for Ryan to rush off to. While pondering where to go, considering Ryan's request due to his busy schedule with a new project, I think about indulging in luxury. Temptation arises as I flip through the pages, but I quickly dismiss the thought. Since I'm leaving all the planning to you, at least let me pay for it. Remembering how he refused my offer to also pay made me reconsider. It wouldn't be right to spend too much if only he is paying. Besides, I don't want to give his mother another reason to make snide remarks about me being a spendthrift because I'm a company president's daughter. I chuckle to myself, realizing I'm thinking about his mother again. I've got to stop this. Deciding to distract myself, I set aside the brochures to start preparing dinner for Ryan, who will be home soon. Then, on the morning of our honeymoon departure, I was hurriedly getting ready when the doorbell rang. Coming. At the door, without checking who it was, I open it to a shocking sight. Mother. There she stood, in flashy clothes, with a large suitcase. Hearing my voice, Ryan pops his head out. You're early, Mom. He warmly welcomes her, while she doesn't even glance at me. I look back and forth between them, confused. Early? What do you mean? Despite us going on our honeymoon, what's with this large luggage of hers? Is she planning to stay at our house while we're away? Confused, I see Ryan give me a smile, much like his mother's. Tada! Surprise! Mom's coming with us. What? Stunned, I let out a dumbfounded sound as Ryan claps happily. What on earth is he talking about? Wait, what do you mean? Didn't you hear me? Mom is coming with us on the honeymoon. As I struggled to hide my confusion, Ryan said this with a frown and then happily put his arm around his mother's shoulder. If we're going on a trip, it's better if Mom comes along too. Hearing her son say this, my mother-in-law looked at me with a smug expression. No, wait a minute. I press my hand against my bewildered head and ask again, more politely. You do realize we're talking about a honeymoon, right? Aren't honeymoons supposed to be for the couple? Even if you wanted to invite someone because they're important family, shouldn't we at least discuss it first? Am I wrong? I'm not wrong, am I? Yet, why do they look at me as if they don't understand me? It's as if we're speaking different languages, and I start to doubt if Ryan even believes me. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law, seemingly enjoying my distress, starts humming a tune. Why do we have to argue like this on what should be a joyous day of our honeymoon? And a surprise? What do you mean by springing this on the day of the trip? What's the big deal? I paid for it, so it should be fine. Noticing my shock, Ryan's face turned sour. No, it's not fine. Was the reason he said he'd pay for the trip, not for me, but to ensure I couldn't complain about taking his mother along? Wait, how can you just spring this on me all of a sudden? That's unbelievable. As I sighed in frustration, both my husband and mother-in-law started to look visibly upset. What do you mean, unbelievable? Oh dear, Vanessa doesn't want to travel with me. As Ryan threw a tantrum like a child, my mother-in-law deliberately put on a troubled voice. My headache started to worsen. It's not about wanting or not wanting. Ryan, did you book the flight for your mother? What about the hotel? When I asked this, Ryan looked perplexed. Huh? We can just book it now. That's impossible. Do you know how far in advance I've booked everything? I raised my voice in disbelief. Could he really think things would just work out, even on the day of? While I had planned not to splurge, the hotel we booked was quite nice, especially since it's peak travel season during a major holiday. There's no way there are any flights or hotel rooms available now. As I pressed him, Ryan naturally reached out his hand. Then give me your tickets. What? For a moment, I was so taken aback I had to ask him to repeat, and he did, more irritably. Just give me your ticket if there's no room for Mom. I paid for the trip, so it's in order. Seeing my mother-in-law's triumphant look made everything seem dark before my eyes. What? What does he mean? What am I being told? Since Mom went through all the trouble of preparing, I'll go on this trip with her. We can go on another trip, Vanessa. That should be fine, right? His rationale, always prioritizing his mother so naturally, left me unable to comprehend. Or does he think that going on a separate trip with me would smooth things over? I've said it before, but this is our honeymoon. Mine and Ryan's. And now, out of nowhere, his mother shows up, expecting me to just hand over our plans because of some surprise? She went through all the trouble of preparing? That's not my concern. If anyone should be making things right, it's my mother-in-law who should be heading back home. Yet, here I am, astounded by a husband who's telling his wife to just give up. You know, I was going to keep quiet about this, but... While holding my aching head, I let out a heavy sigh. The expenses for this trip were covered by my father. You haven't paid anything, so you have no right to demand the tickets from me. As I reveal this, Ryan's expression turns to one of confusion. That makes sense. He believed he had paid, which is why he was so assertive. Why would your father do something like that? Seeing my husband begin to sweat, I look at him with a cold gaze. He gave us the honeymoon funds as a gift, saying we should save our money for the future. And he even said to keep it a secret, considering Ryan's pride. Why didn't you tell me? My husband yells, his face turning red from the shock of the revelation. The mother-in-law, who had been smug until now, starts to fidget nervously, likely not having expected my father to be the one paying. Watching my husband rant, I feel a sudden chill towards everything. I've had enough of my mother-in-law's snide remarks and my husband's prioritization of her. If it's just the two of you going, then you'll have to return the money to my father, and I'll cancel the reservations. Go on your trip with your own money. As I shake off the attempts of my husband and mother-in-law to hold me back, I grabbed my packed bags and left the house. This is no joke. I refuse to let my father's money be used for such a mother and son. Thanks to being burdened with the trip planning because they were too busy. I had made all the reservations under my name. I immediately began to cancel them while getting into the taxi I had called. Instead of heading to the airport as planned, I give the taxi driver my parents' home address. The taxi driver, though puzzled, starts to drive. When I arrive home with my bags, my father is shocked to see his daughter returning from what was supposed to be her honeymoon. After hearing the whole story, he becomes furious. What the hell is that? Are they joking? My phone, ringing non-stop with calls from Ryan, only fuels my father's anger, as well as mine. Talking to my father solidifies my decision. Dad, I think I want a divorce. After hearing my decision, my father calms his anger and offers me a comforting presence. Without judging, he gently strokes my back. I'm sorry, Dad. As I let out those words with my tears, I can see my father's other hand grip tightly. The next day, Ryan came to my parents' house with a gift to apologize. My father stops me from turning Ryan away. If you're considering divorce, you'll need to have a discussion. I want to hear what he has to say for himself. Let him in. Though I was thinking of consulting a lawyer, I agreed to let Ryan in since my father suggested it. Ryan quickly bowed as he noticed my father upon opening the door. Seeing my husband act meekly in front of my father irritated me. As Ryan continues to express his apologies, my father signals me to lead them to the living room. I deeply apologize for the trouble I've caused, President. Ryan began to apologize profusely. Sometimes, even away from work, Ryan refers to my father as President. It seems to be a habit, but now it strikes me that Ryan calls him President not as a father-in-law but in a professional context. His perfectly executed apology was annoying. And what exactly are you apologizing for? My father sighs, a sentiment I share. Ryan says he's sorry for the trouble he caused. Just for the trouble, not for what he did to me. There's a limit to being disrespectful. As Ryan started to scramble for words, I interrupted him by presenting a single piece of paper. Do you know how to fill out a divorce form? I've already completed my part, so you can use it as a reference if you need to. As I deliberately conveyed this with politeness, the color drains from Ryan's face at the unexpected sight of the divorce form. Wait, Vanessa, don't say divorce like that. It seems like the first time Ryan has truly looked at me since he came to our house. To him, I'm always second place. It shouldn't matter to you, right? After all, you have your mother. If that's his stance, I'll speak to him with a formal manner like speaking to a business associate. I have no intention of reconciling with him. I need to make my feelings clear through my actions. What are you talking about? Why is my mother being brought into this now? She was looking forward to that trip too. I can always go on a trip with you, right? Astonishing. Ryan has not understood why I left, not in the slightest way. Always go on a trip? Are you even listening to yourself? It was supposed to be our honeymoon. I tremble with indignation, trying to suppress it with my right hand. My lips hurt from biting them. Which world do you live in where a husband plans to go to a honeymoon with his mother instead of his wife? Putting it into words only heightens the absurdity of the situation. Yet, Ryan, as if to rub salt into the wound, insists on arguing his point. But I was just trying to take her along. You were the one who said there wasn't a flight available for her, that we couldn't get a hotel. Think about it. How could we possibly get bookings on the day of? Incredible. He's seriously arguing this point. Amidst my confusion and anger, he genuinely believes I am to blame. But to tell my mother to go home? She was so looking forward to it. My father calmly interjects as Ryan nearly lashes out in his fervor. Enough. Stop it. Listening silently until now, my father shakes his head in disappointment. Ryan, I'm disappointed in you. President. Ryan's demeanor shifts abruptly at those words, hurriedly correcting his posture. My father just looks at him with a sorrowful gaze. Why did you prioritize your mother over Vanessa in that situation? Well, Pressured by my father, Ryan starts sweating. He can argue back at me, but not at my father. A honeymoon is for the couple to go on. Couldn't you have traveled with your mother some other time? Did you lie when you said you would cherish my daughter? I would never lie. I just wanted to take care of my mother too. Ryan's sudden outburst is met with a stern look from my father. Even if it hurts Vanessa? Ryan falls silent, his voice trembling as he apologizes. I'm sorry. But the tight grip of his hands suggests humiliation. He's apologizing because he has to, not because he believes he did anything wrong. Surely, he doesn't think he's wrong at all. He's just apologizing because my father, the president, is angry. That's all there is to it. Ryan, you're competent at your job. Ryan's face lights up, thinking perhaps he's been forgiven, but that hope is quickly dashed by my father's next words, colder than a midwinter lake. But no matter how capable you are at work, I can't trust someone who doesn't value his family. With those words, my father extends a pen towards Ryan, who starts to tremble. Please wait. Anything but divorce. I'll change, I promise. My father forcefully places a pen in Ryan's hand, insisting. You shouldn't be apologizing to me. At that, Ryan turns to me in desperation. Vanessa, please say something. Please, anything but divorce. He crawls to my feet, looking up at me while clinging to my leg. I'll prioritize you from now on. I can't even cry anymore. I can sense the contempt for me in every word he utters. Please. If we get divorced, I won't be able to pay back my debts. Seeing that neither my father nor I are convinced, Ryan blurts out in a moment of desperation. Debts? What are you talking about? As I look down at him, his hair tousled in disarray, I repeat the word I've never heard him use before. Startled, Ryan jumps away from my feet. Clearly, he hadn't meant to reveal that. He covers his mouth as if regretting his slip. Well, that. As my father and I silently demand an explanation with our eyes, Ryan finally starts to confess. Actually, The truth he hesitantly reveals is enough to make both my father and I hold our heads in our hands. It turns out, Ryan and his mother believed they could live lavishly, expecting the CEO position to fall into their lap, spending extravagantly every week when he returned to his mother's house. This just gives me even less reason to let you stay married. My father, utterly disgusted, watches as Ryan finally shows a sincere act of contrition. Please wait. If we get divorced, I won't know what to do tomorrow. His repeated bowing is almost comical, resembling a toy I've seen somewhere. That's none of our concern. I send a dry glance his way, waiting for him to sign the divorce papers. My father and I quietly sipped our coffees, leaving Ryan without. However, the divorce was finalized. The lawyer my father hired, very efficient, facilitated the negotiations smoothly thanks to the detailed diary I kept. The honeymoon expenses were added to the compensation claim. Before I could respond to their attempt to reduce the payment, my father had already rejected it, making me laugh when he told me. As the news of our divorce spread through the company, Ryan seemed to feel uncomfortable and hastily left his job. Without much of a severance package and only a small amount of savings left, he was forced to live modestly, using what he had to pay the compensation and settle his debts, as informed by the lawyer. His mother, now bedridden, has been getting by on part-time jobs and apparently reached out to former colleagues asking for loans. The truth of this is uncertain, but it has become a humorous story shared at gatherings. As for me, encouraged by my father, who has decided to retire from his position as CEO, and supported by other employees, I am likely to step up as the next CEO. Despite my reservations about being at the forefront, my father, showing rare vulnerability, persuaded me, not wanting to leave the company in the hands of someone he couldn't trust. Feeling responsible for causing my father such concern, I've reluctantly accepted. However, it appears I may have inherited my father's talent for business. With his support as chairman, our company's performance has continued to improve. Thanks to this, I've gained confidence, and recently, I've found myself being approached more at gatherings of company presidents. While I'm not yet considering a new romance, it might be time to take the next step forward.